Today's young buyers have a radically different vision of the world. They demand designs that challenge the norm and revolutionize life on board. And it's this hunger for innovation that underpins the existence of VriThink. During our annual event, we bring together brilliant minds to share in a completely new approach to yacht design. This is VriThink'S Night Out.
All vessels can be an expedition vessel. In 2015, the motor yacht Latitude was the 9th boat in history to do the Northwest Passage twice in both directions in consecutive years. And in 2016, we were the first private vessel to circumnavigate Svalbard and reach above 81 degrees north. That's not Latitude. Latitude isn't even ice-classed. But you don't need a boat like this to be adventurous. Sure, it would have made my job easier, but it wouldn't have been nearly as fun. I first met the owner of Latitude, Anil Thadani, in 2013. And I asked him, I said, why do you want to buy a boat? And Anil gave me the best answer out of any super yacht owner I've ever met. He said, I want to go on adventures and photograph wildlife. So who could pass up an opportunity for that? He was already looking at Latitude and thought it was a really good boat. Latitude is a 47-meter VriPack design built by Timmerman. And he asked me, he said, would this be a good boat to go on adventures and photograph wildlife? And I said, I don't know, I guess we'll find out. So we did. The first thing I did to make Anil's dream come true is I assembled a real crew of cowboys. People that are literal cowboys. Men and women with a thirst for adventure, and young, enthusiastic, and completely naive to what we had in store for them. So we took delivery of Latitude in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we had no idea where we were going to go. So I hung this big map from IKEA up, and I said to Anil, I said, where do you want to go? And he said, Alaska. And I said, well, we can go through the Panama Canal, or we can go up over the top through the Northwest Passage. And he looked at the map, and he looked at me and said, oh, we have to do that. So we did, and that's how the decision was made. And once we made that decision, we were totally committed. From researching everything that we needed to know about the history of the passage to where other expeditions had failed, to outfitting the boat with special equipment. And we also bought ourselves some really cool outfits too, because we had to look adventurous while we were on this. And we used everything that we purchased. But oddly enough, one of the best items we purchased, I have right here. Whoops, it stuck to me. It's a little necky, and it goes over. I'm not going to put it on because of the microphone on. But it was the one thing that kept me warm when I was in the tender hunting polar bear, not hunting them, photographing polar bear for 14 hours at a time in an open boat. The first Northwest Passage in 2014, there was more ice than there had been in decades. And I got really good at moving and breaking ice. The sweet spot for doing that was right about 2 knots, and that was about as fast as we could go without fear of doing any damage to the hull or the running gear or the stabilizer fins. The first Northwest Passage is 3,000 miles. The first time we went through, it took us 126 days from Boston to Vancouver. And it was the most amazing trip I've ever done in my career. It was also the most intense experience of my career. The boat, at the end, the boat was tired and my crew was exhausted. So imagine everyone's surprise when I suggested we go back through, this time from west to east. There had only been 8 other vessels that had successfully completed that route. But sometimes the fear is just imagined. This time as a crew, we were better prepared mentally and physically, and the boat was better prepared. We had learned a lot going on that first passage. And we were able to really fulfill our mission, which was to go on adventures and photograph wildlife. And here we are getting chased by polar bears. And here we are jet skiing in ice fields and wakeboarding. That's Anil in the orange and my chief mate Shelton. The Northwest Passage both times was an experience that I'll never forget. And I understand why guys like Shackleton and Adamson never truly got the ice out of their systems. The other thing we did was photograph a lot of wildlife. The polar bears were really the kings of the Arctic. And just a note on polar bears, all the polar bears, over 43 of them that we saw in both passages, were all fat and happy. Shackleton and Amundsen, I can understand why they never truly got the ice out of their system. And when we left the Northwest Passage, this is the last photograph I took as we were leaving. It was about a 50 knots of breeze, and that was the actual light. That's really how it looked up there. But our biggest challenge was coming up next, and that's when we went to Svalbard and the North Pole. We had a finite amount of time to get the job done. There was a lot of ice up there, and we had to move faster than the 2 knots that we did before. So we had to get clever, and I used a trick that I learned the first Northwest Passage, and that's what I would take a floe of ice, roughly the width of the boat, wedge it between the bulbous and the strike plate, and use that to bash ice. And in that way, I could do about 4 to 5 knots without damaging the boat. And using this method, we were able to circumnavigate Svalbard, and we did make it up to 81 degrees. And that's a picture of us up on an ice floe. We were hula hooping earlier than that one, but we decided to use that photo. Now, if there's one thing I learned from my research, is that successful expeditions always make it home alive. But why do we even do this? I mean, why do we push ourselves to go to higher limits, and in this case, higher latitudes? And that's because the most valuable activities are actually inconvenient. They're fraught with fear of failure and appear undoable. And everyone in this room, or who has been on this stage, knows what I'm talking about. But I guess that makes us all explorers. And that's why any boat can be an expedition vessel, as well any company or any noteworthy endeavor. And that's as long as it has an explorer at the helm. And we're all explorers. Thank you.